Hello.
10 for us, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good.
Thank you, sir.
How are you? Good.
All right. 1 second. Call back.
Let me call to make sure. Just call them and tell them. Call the desk. ¿Me hicieron con esto? Hey, twice a week. Quick mic check, sir. You might cover
1,
that.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh.
Look right in the
Good.
close if you can, sir.
I'm just gonna place my mic.
Yep. You good with sound? Sure?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Everybody ready? All right.
Sir.
My name is Rob Scheer, Robscherer. I'm a sergeant with the Public Affairs Bureau. I'll begin with, as in most of these situations, this is going to take a pretty long time to get through this investigation. We're going to unturn every stone that we can, and once I get through the story, you guys will see the scene is pretty vast as far as area that we got to cover to collect everything we need to collect. So this incident began this morning around 11:15 a.m. Officers responded to an assault that occurred near 27th Avenue and Bell Road. As officers were responding to this call, they were given a description of the man that allegedly committed this assault. A sergeant responding to the call observed a man matching that description and matching a bike that was described by the caller that he was riding. He first observed this man near the area of 31st Avenue and Bell Road, traveling westbound. The sergeant did make verbal contact with the man, ordering him to stop. The man refused and continued to take off from the sergeant. The man proceeded to the apartment complex where we're at here near 33rd Avenue and Bell Road, and proceeded into the complex. The sergeant at that time did lose sight of the man. The sergeant proceeded to a different part of the complex, exited his vehicle, and went through the complex in an attempt to locate the man. While inside the complex, he did observe the man, again giving him commands to drop to the ground. The officer, or the man, did not comply with these commands again and took off on foot. Very short foot pursuit happened. Again, additional officers were still responding now to this location. And behind me, near kind of the east portion of this complex, the man stopped and turned, and the sergeant again confronted him verbally, giving him commands to go to the ground. It was at this time that the sergeant did see that the man had a knife in his hand. One officer arrived on scene. At that point, the sergeant had the man at gunpoint, and this second officer that arrived on scene deployed with his less lethal taser. The man was given very quick verbal commands again to get on the ground and drop the knife. Man refused and actually charged the sergeant on scene. The sergeant did deploy his duty weapon. Additionally, the officer on scene did deploy the taser. It was virtually simultaneous. The man did sustain serious injuries and gunshot wounds. He was transported to a local hospital where he is in stable condition at the time. Again, we're going to be here for a good amount of time. This is, the bulk of this complex, and then obviously the predicate, offense that we've got to go investigation. We got to investigate reference the assault. So it's going to take some time. We urge the patients of specifically, obviously, the residents of this complex. We're going to be in their complex for some time, and then obviously to get answers to the bulk of the investigation is why it's going to take this much time. So, any questions? I'll be free. Or
You mentioned that it started with this assault, that this was the description that was given. The sergeant was going off of that description. Do you believe that this person is the person that committed that assault?
Yes, I mean, at that time, obviously, the sergeant did believe that. Proving that, obviously, is going to be part of that ongoing investigation, not only investigating the shooting here, but investigating the assault call that started this, that had officers responding and in turn contacting this man. So
And one thing I want to make sure that I understand.
Yes.
You said that there was, basically this guy ran away, that there was another officer that had responded. He deployed the taser twice, am I hearing?
no, when I said the first time when he deployed with the taser, he took his taser out, so he's less lethal. Tactically, we have one less lethal and one lethal. Just tactics. It's how we're trained and how we do. So once the sergeant is lethal, the second officer went less lethal to make that an option. So he only deployed it once. Again, that was kind of simultaneous with the officer that deployed his firearm. Once the man did charge at the sergeant.
So only one officer fired shots.
Correct. A sergeant, but yes, we only have one City of Phoenix officer that did fire his weapon.
Did he deploy his gun more than once or just one time?
He fired multiple times.
Okay.
And first, the laser was used, right? He fired it a couple times, and then he went on and proceeded with the actual firearm.
No. The taser and the firearm, that the officer fired the taser and the sergeant fired the firearm, they were virtually simultaneous. The officer with the taser only deployed his one time.
And then another officer deployed an actual firearm.
Yeah, the sergeant deployed his duty weapon.
So two officers were involved at the end.
Two officers were involved. Only one did deploy his firearm.
And that's when the suspect charged him.
Right. The suspect came charging at the sergeant, who had the lethal component of this contact, at which time he discharged his firearm. Yes. Yeah, multiple times. Once that last contact happened, he was told to drop the knife and get on the ground.
So the sergeant was the initial person that followed him into this complex?
Correct. The sergeant was the one that first saw him on 31st and Bell. Sergeant did follow him to this area, and then Sergeant recontacted him within the apartment complex, and then the sergeant chased him on foot. So Sergeant did bulk of the contact. The officer that got on scene was at the end of this contact.
So he drove in. Was he called to assist the sergeant, or?
Yeah, once the sergeant saw the man that matched the description, he got on the radio, advised the other responding officers, at which time obviously they're gonna converge on this area where the sergeant's giving locations and direction of travel and such.
Is the suspect tied to this complex at all, or did he just happen to? This is just where he was.
You know what? That's going to be part of the ongoing investigation. If he is a resident here, if he's tied to it in some way, will be part of the ongoing investigation. Obviously we're going to want to know where he lives and where he lays his head. So that will be part of it. Whether it ties to this, I don't have that information right now.
The initial assault happened outdoors at 27th and Bell.
It actually happened at a business in the area of 27th Avenue and Bell Road.
And what's the status of the victim in that assault?
There weren't any reported injuries that were from the initial call. There was, at least described by the caller, an assault that did occur, but there was no injuries that were reported at that time. That's something we'll follow up on. Investigators are, collectively doing this investigation, and they will obviously go to that investigation and attempt and assess injuries and such. He's at a local hospital, serious condition, but he is stable at this time.
Can you describe the suspect, his age, perhaps, anything that you're able to elaborate?
I don't have any of that right now. I can tell you he's an adult male. Specifics on age and any other demographics I don't have.
And then just to be clear, the suspect was on his bike when he got to the complex, and at some point it went from the sergeant in his vehicle to getting out in a foot pursuit.
Correct. Yes. When
It started behind this fence.
correct. Approaching this complex, he was on a bike. At some point, he got off his bike, and then both the sergeant and the man were on foot. Right now, being that his injuries, he does have a gunshot wound. I don't want to lean either way. At this point, obviously surviving this long, we lean more to he should hopefully be able to survive these injuries. We can't say definitively at this point. He was shot multiple times, yes. Yes, ma'am.
So it looks like there's a scene here in the parking lot driveway, and then there's more tape and more stuff kind of throughout the complex. Where was he physically
Shooting's going to happen on the east side of this complex.
Okay, so in the
Yes,
driveway here.
yes. Obviously, with the foot pursuit and being within the complex, we're going to hold the bulk of the complex just to see if there's any evidence from a previous crime or from this incident that happened here that is part of this investigation. So, like I said, the portion of this complex we're going to have a lot of this complex right now as part of our scene, and then obviously the precursor call for service of the assault, that's going to be part of the scene. So it's pretty vast, which is why it may take a little bit longer in this case to finish this investigation.
A witness says that the suspect didn't have any shoes on or a shirt on. Could the suspect be possibly homeless?
You know, at this time, again, residential and where he lays his head, it will be part of this investigation. I don't have that information right now, whether to say he's homeless or not.
Any indication he was under the influence of anything? Or?
Again, that'll be something that we check on. I can't say there's anything that leads to that at that point, or anything that leads to that he's not.
How long do you think before residents can return to their apartments?
The apartment will be the first portion of this investigation. You know, it's being that there's elements of evidence throughout within the taped portion of this complex. Those in theory shouldn't take too long, but the shooting itself, time is on our hands in this sense, and we don't want to go too fast. So it's going to be a few hours. Obviously, the investigators will want to get done as soon as possible, while also being, careful and efficient throughout their investigation.
And just wanting to confirm, no officers or community members were hurt.
Correct. No officers were injured. No other community members were injured.
So the initial call of the assault happened in a business, in or out of business at 27th and Bell.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was a call of an assault, but no injuries.
Yes, ma'am.
Did the initial caller say that this person was armed with anything?
There was no report of a weapon from the initial call. The first time a weapon was observed was when this final contact with the man happened, at which time he was observed with a knife in his hand.
Was that like a kitchen knife?
I haven't been able to see the knife specifically, so I wouldn't be able to tell you whether kitchen knife or any other type of knife for that matter.
Did he know the victim from down the street?
We haven't established any sort of relationship at this time.
So, but there was no injuries or violence, but weapons used against the initial victim who called in the assault only at this particular scene.
Yes, ma'am. I would, again, like you said, I would say the assault is an element of violence, but no weapon was included in that. Anything else? Good? All right, thank you. If anything else, if I get anything else, I will push it out in a media advisory in the next couple hours, but